The goal in your life is not to figure out how to be comfortable in your mental prisons, but to realize that you have the keys to set yourself free. Hey everybody, welcome to the program. It's Tim Shurr, and today we have an amazing guest, a mesmerizing guest. SUJIT LALWANI is here. SUJIT, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Tim. Sure, it's a pleasure to be with a host like you, and couldn't have gotten any better.
Well, thank you. So I'm really excited to have you here. So anybody that doesn't know who SUJIT is, he is a trendsetter. This guy is on fire, and especially at his age, it makes me a little envious of what he's been able to accomplish so far. So I wanted him on the show so I could soak in that genius, and maybe it'll help me a little bit. So SUJIT is, he lives in Bangalore, right? Or what I said?
Bengaluru.
That's right. You told me it's changed now. You said it's kind of like the Silicon Valley.
So, yeah, Silicon Valley from Asia, Bengaluru.
Yeah. So breaking news, everybody in America, if you didn't know that. So SUJIT is with Bengaluru, they're doing some pretty extraordinary things. And when you got big companies like Walmart and Amazon coming in and making big purchases and trying to get their foot in the door there, there's so many bright, amazing people that are just coming out from all over the world. And SUJIT is a voice for so many of these people. He recognizes the complexity of the different generations working together and trying to motivate millennials and because it's different than how it used to be, right? The world has completely changed.
Indeed. I mean, you're living in a way more dynamic world, somewhat social media, information overdose. Minds are, shorter with attention span, but more smarter. Definitely people are more clearer about their purpose, what they want. And sometimes they're on the other extreme. They're absolutely unclear about what they want, and they're just looking for somebody to help them figure out what they want. And once they figure out what they want, it's very short-lived at times as well. So you're dealing with a very different generation.
Yeah, very different. And so a lot of employers used to incentivize people by talking about pensions and the 10-year plan. And
I know.
In 10 years, that person might have 5 different jobs.
Absolutely. And that's, while it might be a starter motivation to get somebody going, it definitely is not the lasting one. So it's a very dynamic generation altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with a lot of HR directors, and they're saying that, this generation is asking much different questions, and it's how's your culture? What's my work-life balance going to be like? And old school employers are like, work-life balance, what does that mean? Right?
We never got educated on that. No school taught us that. And then you're suddenly asking them what's work-life balance going to be? Absolutely true. They want to make, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so what caused you, so for everybody listening, SUJIT wrote a great book called Life Simplified. And so obviously you're very good at seeing social problems and then trying to figure out how to provide some solutions. So what was the catalyst? What caused you to want to write this book?
So I was personally dealing with a lot of complexities. I came from a very modest background, an average middle-class family when I was growing up. My dad was a businessman. He was a dealer with false ceiling materials, and he used to do fairly well for himself and the family. Initially, we would be able to just make ends meet, and then he probably started saving a bit more. And then, he started growing on the ladder of business. When I saw all of that, our house was, 10 feet by 10 feet. So that roughly moves to like 100 square feet, which is quite small. I mean, smaller than the room you're seated in at this point in time, so having come from that background, and seeing enough complexities to deal with, sometimes not knowing where they come from, peer pressure, societal pressures. And then as I was growing up, priorities kept changing. At one point in time, a priority was to, rank really well in the school, do good in your, academics. And then, the pressure got in, what stream are you going to pick up? What careers are you going to choose for yourself? Are you going to follow your passion? I did not come from a background where, my family was voracious readers or, very highly exposed to, talent development in the family. So it's not like, I took to singing or, playing sports or any of those things, and I was even a non-reader for that matter. So, very little exposure to so many things. So I was very streamlined with the fact that maybe when I grew up, maybe I'll just continue doing my father's business. But as I grew up, a few dreams started, starting to catch on to me. And I was like, no, I want to explore this one. Like, there's so much more to it. I got very inspired by science education, took up science for myself, fell in love with physics, while exploring this abstract world of physics and doing so much study on quantum mechanics. I realized there's so much depth to study in one subject. Imagine how much depth there might be to life itself. I said, no, I'm going to explore. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to provide for myself, because by the time I was around 18 and I had fallen in love with physics, I also realized livelihood is a big thing. I got to manage my finances, never thought really about that, never cared so much. I knew probably I'll get taken care of some way or the other by life, but it wasn't that simple. Then there were friends, relationships. I moved to school and I lose the contact or the touch with so many of my friends, and you have to make new circles. Each time you get into a newer circle, you got to find your niche once again. You got to establish your own identity once again. So all of those little complexities, starting from very small ones to when I took to business and marketing, people just wouldn't buy into what product you're selling just like that, because you got to convince them, you got to compel them, you got to find a reason why they're going to say, hey, here are my bucks, here's the product you want. And it just doesn't stop there. Even after buying it, using it, people would come back as naysayers, haters, rejections, so many of those things. And all of this while I was still managing my education. And the big question, when I started working with a lot of young people, everybody used to be like, what's the purpose of my life? This question hit me really hard. I started asking myself very early, what's the purpose of my life? What am I going to be really doing? I was good at academics. I was good at physics. I could have probably taken up sports because I was an all-rounder, throughout my schooling. So I was under this big pressure. If I do one thing, I'm going to always miss out the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the big question, what's actually going to make me happy versus what's going to make the people around me happy versus what's going to bring my full potential to the table? And can I ever find a mix of all the three? And the fourth thing, the big daddy, will I make money out of all this? Eventually, will I be able to feed myself, my family, and then have good economic growth for myself? So these questions, and then the complexities of relationships and how your emotions can go just, one point you're at the rock bottom and the other point you're at on top of Mount Everest, you're feeling so high, and then boom, you come down. Everybody listening to the show, I'm sure they've experienced these, cycles of emotions. So all of these things, when I was becoming more and more aware, I realized that a lot of people do not have enough time for reflection and introspection, and they probably don't even realize they're going through all of these things. But I used to somehow make time for myself, introspecting, sitting down 15-20 minutes every single day, right from grade 5, because I read this book, The Power of Subconscious Mind, and how you can visualize and just make anything come true. The best thing that I had to do that time was just visualize I'm going to get great grades in my school without actually having to do too much of study, and I was successful. So all of these things led to me to ask myself, and even bigger, was the fact that I myself was a non-reader until I got into my first year of actual graduation, when I got motivated and compelled that hey boy, listen, if I don't read enough now and I'm going to be underexposed, I cannot take on the opportunities in the world. But then as I grew up, when I was 22, 23, I gave into reading a lot of books. I have a good collection, 3,000, 4,000 books now that I've read, but looking back at my journey as a non-reader, what would compel me to read and what would move me to read? A book that was rather simple, answered the questions of my life, and also was easy to navigate, was a coffee table read. I want a conversation with the author. I don't want to really get bogged down, by so much stuff with such small fonts that I get demotivated with the first book and I never take to reading again. So with this thought process and keeping in mind the target market that's just like me, potential non-readers at that point in time, I decided I'm going to write a book which is a coffee table read, a simple to read book, which then happened, and that was Life Simplified. So now 2.0 is coming out for everybody else, and they could probably buy that, but for the community of non-readers from 14 to 28, the first coffee table read happened. So that's how it happened, Tim.
Wow. So that's quite a story. So there's a lot. So let's unpack that. So I like what you said, that a lot of times people don't even recognize that they're having all these emotional ups and downs because we're moving so fast that we
True, true, true.
time. And so I've met many people over the years who've literally stepped out of the workforce, or who felt like they were going to have a nervous breakdown. And so they would literally be in a situation where they were forced to slow down and take care of themselves. And that's when they recognized how many emotions they actually had and how much they were just pushing down, because they were in survival mode and they were just trying to get through it. And so your philosophy is that we've got to make sure that we find a nice balance of doing what we're good at and finding a way to monetize it, but also making sure that we're going to enjoy what we're doing, because you had a lot of different ways you could go. So one of the ways that you went is through building your presence online, right? So I read a stat somewhere that you've touched about 4.5 million people through your talks and your books and your presence online, and you have what was it called? Inspirational Unlimited, the eMagazine, right? The website that gets like 1 million hits. What is that, a year? I mean, that's
no. So last month we did like 1 million readership to our content in 1 month. So it works like this. In a month. So our online media has got channel partners. That's how we work. Very early on, I understood that the power of technology is through partnering with a lot of people. Like you said at the very beginning, our pre-show, conversation, that once we collaborate, we unleash very different scale of power. So I knew that while publishing content and getting popular as a blog, as a standalone website is one thing. The second thing is the power of collaborations with the right companies. And that's how we got partnered with a company called News Republic, which is a wonderful company based out of France, now acquired by a company called ByteDance, and they acquired News Republic, and they've been distributing our content. And we were lucky enough to be a part of their partners group as an offbeat content media, and they have 100 million plus downloads to their app. So that brings us like 10 million active readers available to read our content every time we publish. So with all of these powers combining together, we just tipped 1 million plus readership last month in a single month, and now our next target is to see 10 million in a couple of months, and I'm sure we're going to do that. Because a lot of attention has come to our media suddenly, and people want to, be a part of how they could profile themselves. Businesses want to get featured with us. So all of those things, good things are happening. But yes, that IU does about 1 million readership a month now, but with the potential of reaching all of those 100 million, subscribers of all our channel partners.
So that's amazing, right? Being able to set that up and partner with those people. Where'd you get the idea of reaching out and connecting with them?
It's funny how it actually happened. So one of these evenings about 7.5 years ago, it was November 2012, I remember, and I was discussing with my brother. I have a sibling, elder brother, very meticulous and, has his own thought process. He took over my father's business as such. And we were having a discussion, and he was guiding himself through the newspaper. And he was like, so much of negativity, politics, murder, crime, all of these things. There's no one positive media. I mean, how do you, because I was giving him, a tidbit that what we feed our minds with is what we eventually become. This conversation kind of bounced off, and he's like, I mean, what am I supposed to read on this newspaper? I said, hey, listen, that's why I don't watch news and read newspapers, so much. So he said, there's no positive media in this world. Why? I mean, is it so difficult to do it? I said, we all can complain, but I mean, I want to do something about it. So I went back, I spoke to my tech team, and I said, hey guys, we're launching a newsletter tomorrow morning, which is a positive and all positive, no gossips newsletter. Then I was like, by the time 2 or 3 hours went by, that's how my dreams multiply at times, and I just can't have a control on them. And I was like, why not build the world's most powerful positivity media? And I said, what do I do for that? How do I start it now? Because everything that I want to put in place, I also have another factor inside me which says, do it now, because otherwise I'm just going to lose the intensity behind this idea. And because I'm a big believer, when an idea happens inside you, it's got some energy that's coming in from within. If you put it in stone then and there, you consolidate the entire energy and store it and create a storehouse for all of future, because that's how you keep referring back to the vision you started with. And I said, I want it done now. And I said, okay, let's do one thing. Let's put a box on our website. We were a training company back then. And I said, let's put up a box on our website and say, this is the world's #1 inspirational eMagazine. And that was the tagline. And I said, hey guys, 20th November 2012, this is the date I'm launching this, most powerful positivity media. Why don't you join my launch? And there were about 400 people who came in. We did a launch. The first newsletter, as it was just 8 pages. And then we did that launch. We had like 5 writers, maybe 12 writers, 5 different countries. So I put those stats up on the, presentation. I said, hey, listen, we got 12 writers from 5 different countries and we have 100 subscribers pre-launch. I still remember, and today it's a very different thing, 100 million plus potential reach. So that's how it happened, that nobody does a positive online media. I said, I'm going to do it. We kept investing from all our training company profits and, growth, but we brought it. We did not even monetize it for about 5-6 years. And it's just last year that we started monetizing, and we're doing decently well now. And we're looking at spiking up the growth next year.
Yeah. So again, let's break down that formula for success, right? So the first thing you did was you recognized a problem, right?
True,
that there
absolutely.
was so much negativity. Yeah. So too much propaganda in those newspapers. And then you're like, I'm going to do something about it, because too many people say, well, who am I? I'm just one person, right? But one person can make a big difference. And you did.
Absolutely.
And then you were in it for the long haul, right? So it took 9 years for you to start to say, we're going to make some money doing this. And
7 years.
You're right, 7 years. Yeah, 7 years. And so, when you start in 2012 and it's 2013 and you're adding a lot of value, but you're not making money, most people would exit, right? But then you're like, I'm going to keep adding value, have more writers, have more collaborative partners, and just keep adding value. And so maybe by 2015, 2016, most people would have said, well, it's been a couple of years, we haven't done anything. But
I agree.
You held in there for the long run. And that's what most people think. Entrepreneurs have this idea that you're going to get rich quick. If you just get in the game, you're going to be profitable. And the people that I know that have made, they're making $1 million, a month or a year, they've been in it. They've been doing it for 10. They've been doing it a minimum of 9 or 10 years, and they just keep going and tweaking.
I agree. I agree with you, Tim. That's absolutely right. I mean, one thing that I learned very early on in my life, and I really thank all my mentors, my father, in fact, who went on to build himself a decent business, and he was like, regionally the number one dealer, with whatever he was dealing. So all of those things kind of taught me one thing. If you are in it for the long haul and you are going to, retain and sustain your motivation until everyone else gives up, you've won the race already, and you are going to be shining mainly because everyone else gave up. But the fact that you are shining, that might be one reason that everyone gives up is why you're shining. But the truth is, everyone could not sustain the energies like you did. That's why you're shining. It's very easy to say that you are a star because someone else gave up. But the reality is you stuck around when everyone else wanted to give up, right? So both the paradigms, apply well. It's just like the half glass full and the other half empty. How you look at it matters. So I told myself, it's not about because everybody else is going to give up and not believe in it. That's not going to be the only reason I'm going to succeed. I believe in it, and I'm going to stick around till I make a success out of it. And yes, I agree with you. It takes a good 9 or 10 years, to make a real profitable, big, sound venture. Unlike the valuation game that's in place today, I do agree some of these startups, who are able to attract themselves the right investments and investors. But even if you study their balance sheets, right? I mean, they're working on, throwaway margins. So probably they're not even working into the area of profitability. Right. So they're able to build big brands. But the question always remains, how are you going to make it profitable at one point in time? Right. I mean, if you look at WhatsApp, they built a model. They got sold for $19 billion to Facebook, but they haven't made their first revenues still. If you look at Truecaller, they built the value system for almost 10 years, almost a decade now, but they are still having the big question, how do we first big break even, So I do agree that if you're a small business, it's okay. It's okay if you're building a small business, but you got to keep in mind that this is going to turn profitable if you stay in it for the long run. Keep bringing in collaborations. Don't give up the second year, the third year, when desperation starts to sink in, when the peer pressure starts to come in. I want it to succeed versus, and also you have people questioning and asking you, so how is it doing? And you have a big question mark on your, mind. How do I answer this? How is it coming? I know it's going to go somewhere. I know it's not yet where everyone expects it to be. But I surely do not want to get discouraged by the comments and the answers coming in. So what do? I still try to make an answer that makes them or people around me convinced that it's going to go somewhere. But then I think at one point in time, it's not about getting everyone around you convinced at all. It's always going to be about keeping yourself convinced within. And I was convinced from day one that this is going to be the biggest bet I'll put my hands in, because I knew I'm building it for a cause, for a reason, for a purpose much larger than my life. That's why this world map, I want a reader, from every single nation who comes forward and says, hey, listen, this is my regular dose of motivation. This is my positivity hack. I visit this online media every single day to figure out what's the positive thing happening in the world. Only then I think my dream rests, or begins to rest. I wouldn't say that's the end of it. I think that will be the start of it. So
it'll be the start of the next exciting chapter. Because I have a theory about this, and I think sometimes it's just how we're wired. During your journey, did you ever feel like you could stop? Or does it feel more like you don't have a choice? You have to do this even if you don't want to. It's like a calling, and you're just in. You're all in no matter what happens.
Now, I'll be very honest. There were times when you do have a question mark on your mind which says, do I pursue this? There's a whole lot of things I could otherwise be doing, which would be profitable, making me a lot more money. Now, I'll be very honest that those doubts do come in. But there's at those times, what I did to myself was just sit down, reflect, go back to my day one. Like I said, right, the moment you have this do it now approach, you put a reservoir of energy right at the beginning, which you can access in those times. So every time, I wouldn't say I did not face those doubts. I did. And a good number of times, at times when probably the, balance sheet was under question, at times when priorities had to change, at times when because of the balance sheet, I wasn't able to manage the quality of this media at one point in time to what I expected it to be. That's about 5 years ago. So all of these reasons become a reason to make you doubt yourself and doubt the capacity of the venture, and I do say that there were doubts, but then at those times I would take a break and I would tell myself, hey, listen, something's going wrong. I need to space out. I need to zoom out. I need to go back and then come back forward and ask myself, why did I start? When I started, it was just a small box. How much passion I had for it. And today I have few thousand stories covered. Do I want to doubt myself now? And then I would be like, no, I'm not going to doubt it now. I'm going to just rewire a few things and I'm going to stay in the game until this becomes a big success. So I'm not saying that if you're losing, you just continue losing. That's not a good business model, especially if you're funding it yourself. But this isn't just a business. When your business, your passion and your purpose combine, that's ideally when you do not give up on an idea you've started out for. If any one of these elements are missing, those doubts or the doubt-filled times have enough capacity to stop you. So I would say that there were several other ideas of mine that I put a full stop. I said, no, I'm not going to pursue them anymore. Right? So those ideas are those where probably my inner calling or the passion or the purpose were not all aligned together. They were a business model. I put them in place because they could help me bring finances to finance the actual, venture that I was driven by, and once those things stopped driving me enough, or there were doubts, like I had a digital media marketing, vertical in my company. I just put a full stop to that and I said, hey, no, I'm not going to do this digital marketing anymore because I can put all of that energy into this business of mine. And there was another training wing, we were training at schools. So I said, no, I'm not going to do this anymore because I could put all my time and energy and resource here. We were doing fairly well. But when those times of doubts came in over there, I put a full stop. But here I never did because passion, purpose, and my, driving factors all combined to put me, in a stage to continue this. Over to you, Tim.
That's outstanding, Sujit. That's just, it's so good. All right, so let's review.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
have you been through the same?
Yes.
Especially, yeah.
It's consistent where everybody has doubt. Everybody questions whether they should move forward or not. Everybody wonders if what you're doing, is it actually going to pan out? Is it going to be, are you going to get a return on all your blood, sweat, and tears? And the people who keep moving forward, the idea evolves over time. So even if there's something that it's not going to work out, you don't just, keep beating a dead horse, so to speak. But you'll from going forward, from being open to feedback, from staying coachable, from hiring other coaches or collaborating with other people, you start to figure out how to make it work, or how to change direction so that it does make a bigger impact. But I love how you really talked about, yes, you're going to have doubt, but you have to find a way to step back. And a lot of times in those situations, we think we have to speed up and keep charging forward. And
I know.
Yeah. So learning how to take a pit stop is what I call it. You can run around the track really fast, but if you don't take pit stops, you don't finish the race.
Absolutely. Wonderful. I mean, very well said, Tim. I mean, pit stop is the precise word for anyone listening right now, and they got to find a coach like you, for example, they got to sit down and ask, hey, Tim, listen, this is what's going wrong in my business. I want to step back, take a break. Can you help me navigate through this? And I'm sure you've helped enough people. That's why you're able to clearly understand the difference between somebody who's got mentored and who hasn't got mentored, right?
Oh, yeah. It's a huge difference in how they show up, how they take care of themselves, how they take care of other people. I'm always hiring coaches because I know that there's a lot of stuff I don't know, and you can't see your own blind spots. And it's almost always our limiting beliefs or our limiting way that we're looking at the situation that's holding us back, not the outside stuff.
Absolutely. The point, limiting beliefs, that's like a nail, you've nailed it. That's the truth. I mean, the number of limiting beliefs we are conditioned with, as we grow up, from the society, people around us, all of those things, I think, kind of really stop us from succeeding. And it's not the outside world at all.
My whole career is zoomed in on that, right? It's all about unconscious beliefs, blind spots, and biases, because I find that when you're trying to influence human behavior, which I've spent 30 years studying that is where it comes down to. Your beliefs are the software that drives the computer, in your head. And too many people, I always joke and say, we upgrade our computers, we upgrade our phones, but how many people upgrade their beliefs? And so too many people are running MS-DOS still. Original programming.
And they still find it amazing. And they're, I would say they're amused when they find that triangle go with that cursor. And they're like, wow, this is an amazing program. It's not. You could probably do that. I get it.
Yeah. So I love, all right. So, you said so many things that were great. So stepping back, and then keeping yourself passionate. One of the things that I really love that you said is that you can keep other people engaged. And especially if you're a leader, then you need to make sure that you keep other people engaged. But the secret is to keep working on yourself.
Absolutely.
Self-believing and recharged and plugged in, and keep focusing on how you're going to add value, that it's not just about you, it's about the value that you're going to add to the world. And you let that shine so bright that it just draws you to it.
Absolutely. And at times you might even probably, engage others really well, but you're disengaged with yourself. At those times, you will see the things that were already in place will also start falling out. And when the things that were obvious and in place, when they start falling out, that's a big, I would say, indicator that you haven't been working on yourself.
Yes.
You've been working with everyone else, but you haven't worked on yourself. That's why the obvious things are also falling out. So when they're falling out, just sit down and just say, hey, listen, I gotta coach myself.
Yeah, that's really good. It's an excellent indicator. So it's a great way to identify a blind spot. If you have other things that were working and all of a sudden they're not, and
absolutely,
look within. Don't just be looking at what's going on outside of you. There's a great quote that I've heard a long time ago. It says, when you learn to go within, you never go without.
Oh, absolutely. And you never go without anything as well. Absolutely. And one of the things I'd really like, I think this could be a hack for every listener. One of the best ways, because a lot of people used to reach out to me when I used to mentor like several people, go to these speeches. People used to ask, how do I figure out my blind spots? I used to always say this thing, the biggest moment of solution, or the biggest moment you must rejoice, is the fact that you're aware there is a blind spot. That's 90% of the solution in itself, right? Yes. But people used to always come back asking, but how how on earth do I really figure out in the first place that I have a blind spot and where it actually lies? So I think one of the indicators for everyone is when the obvious and the things that are already in place, the machinery that's supposed to be doing really well isn't lubricated enough, or isn't doing well, or is falling apart. That's an absolute indicator that the system isn't going wrong. It's the system inside that's going wrong. That's when you know there is a blind spot. And of course, the coaches help you figure out the blind spot. So I leave it to them.
Well, I think that's great. That's excellent advice. From hanging around with a lot of leaders, when I first started working with businesses in corporate America, I had the opportunity to observe a lot of leaders in action. And some of the best leaders always assumed that they had blind spots. They just always assumed that they had them, and they were always trying to figure out what they were. So they were always trying to get feedback, or they would ask for surveys, or they would ask, what am I doing that's working? What should I stop doing? What's one thing that I could do immediately that would make me more effective or influential as a leader? And so they were always wanting that feedback because they looked at it as a way to grow. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Where the people that don't think they have blind spots, they're the ones that are the worst. Because they think they're already great.
And I just hope they don't make it to the leadership positions, because then they will get the whole team collapsing. Because if you can't spot your own blind spots, the one thing that you will become an expert at is to find out the blind spots of others which don't actually exist.
Yeah. Wait, say that again. Say that last part again.
This is complex, but thanks to physics, I can feel the abstractness of it. It is, if you cannot spot your own blind spots, you will get busy finding the blind spots of others that don't actually exist. Because you are in others looking at the blind spots that you have inside yourself, but you don't have an acceptance of them. So you want to think that those blind spots exist in somebody else, but they are unlikely to be the blind spots of others, but they are yours. So if you do not spend enough time finding your own blind spots or making acceptance about it, the biggest thing that you will accomplish in your life is finding the blind spots of everyone else which don't exist.
That is outstanding.
Thank you.
Oh man, you're getting a sticker today or something. I don't know. That was amazing. Big virtual five.
High five.
that was outstanding. I'm very impressed right now, because that is a very good observation. And
absolutely, I agree.
Oh yeah, it's something that most people don't understand. So in psychology, there's a word that Sigmund Freud came up with, or maybe it was his daughter, but he calls it projection, right? Where you take your own issue and you put it onto somebody else and you think it's them. And so
absolutely.
So when you said that when you're not aware of your own blind spots, and you'll start focusing on the blind spots that others have, and you'll notice things that's not really an issue of theirs, but it's an issue of yours. So if someone pushes your buttons, a lot of times the goal isn't to try to get them to stop pushing the buttons, it's to get rid of the button.
Absolutely. And you project it. Absolutely. Projection is what you start doing, it's just the perfect word for it. You start projecting your own limitations and blind spots onto somebody else and start seeing, so that they start pushing those buttons of yours.
Yes. It's so I have friends that are marriage counselors, and they would always joke that, marriage counseling is about fixing your partner. Right? And that is how most people approach it. And of course, most marriage counseling ends in divorce because marriage counseling is about growing yourself, right? It's not about changing your partner. It's about recognizing the stuff in yourself, so I think that this is the most important part. I mean, there's so many great things that you've brought up here in our conversation, but this is really one that's so important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that, for me and for you and for everybody that's listening, we've got to make sure that if we're upset or frustrated with someone else, what is it about that behavior that we're responding to? And could that be part of what's going on inside of us? So I watch my wife and I, and sometimes we'll complain about we do the same things, we just do it differently. And then that's what we're complaining about. And every time I try to get my wife to stop doing that, it never works. But every time I work on not doing it, she gets better, right? Her
Absolutely.
behavior
Absolutely.
improves because of my behavior. And so I'm focused,
Absolutely.
I'm always trying to make me better because
Absolutely. I mean, and that's the hack. I mean, the better you get, the better the world around you seems to be. You know, all of a
that's it.
sudden, all the flaws stop existing because you stop projecting, and then because you're so observant about your own blind spots, the very identity of yours, or the very virtue of yours starts getting rubbed off on everyone else around you.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. Very few people can have a conversation like this. And so this is awesome. So another one of my favorite quotes is that you don't see the world as it is, you see the world as you are, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
And
Yeah.
that's summarizing what we're talking about here.
True that.
So,
And just to add, this is probably one of the most important hacks for all the people leading millennials, and all the millennials being led by the people who are all knowing and all correct. If the millennials are being led by somebody who's projecting beware, it's totally okay. Just ask yourself very honestly if that's your blind spot. And for everyone who's leading the millennials, if you're just unable to get your message across, you could do some reflection for yourself and actually help them figure it out. Because if you figure out yourself or your blind spots are, then unlikely you're projecting, then you will actually work on them to understand their own blind spots. Because millennials probably love a conversation around helping them realize and reflect, rather than being coached directly to say, hey, listen, ABC is not right about you. Millennials love being said, do you think potentially A could be going wrong somewhere around you? Do you spot any friends of yours or people around you who have A not going right for themselves? And then they go back and they ponder and they're like, hey, listen, more than my friends, I think it's me who doesn't have A right inside of me. Let me go back and ask him, hey, listen, did you intend to mean it was me? And then you give a smile and say, hey, you got it right.
yeah.
So anyway, over to you, Tim.
That's brilliant. That's exactly it. Whenever I'm helping different generations communicate with each other, or different cultures communicate with each other, it's all about having a respectful conversation where you're trying to understand rather than just be understood. Because
absolutely.
the beliefs on both sides, the older generations, the baby boomers are afraid that you're going to steal my job, or that
Correct.
you don't care, right?
Correct.
And the younger generation is like, you need to retire, because you want to do these old ways that aren't as effective or efficient. And you hate when I ask questions or question you about it. And so
Correct.
it's the disrespect that gets in the way. And so by having the conversation, like you said, and asking different questions, you can find the answer to anything if you ask the right question.
Absolutely.
And the questions that you're offering right now are really powerful. And just getting people to understand that younger generations like those questions. They want to be more self-aware, right? Where this is not what we did in the older generations. People didn't focus on emotional intelligence or what they call the soft skills, which I always think that's funny, because I think what they should be called are the essential skills.
I agree. They shouldn't be called the soft skills at all.
Yeah.
You nailed it. Yeah, they are the most essential skills. I mean, there was recently I was on a podcast and they said, what would be one course you would introduce, in the universities? And I said, it would be the art of networking, because that would sum up everything. And these are essential skills and not soft skills at all. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be the title of this episode. Essential skills with Sujit and Tim. It's going to be awesome.
So you see, it evolves. The episode evolved the title. Just the same way as a leader, if you're constantly opening your mind, the opportunity might strike you almost like, towards the end of the game. But that's when you get the title for yourself. So if you get the title at the onset, you might fabricate a journey. But if you keep evolving with the journey, you get a title for yourself at the end.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's so exciting. And again, it's the power of collaborating, right?
Absolutely.
The two of us getting together and chatting, and then all of a sudden this new energy comes up, these new ideas come out. And so that's amazing. So real quick, I got a couple more questions for you, but before that, so what's the best way for people to find your book? I mean, you can go on Amazon and get it, but is there, let everybody know a couple of ways where we can get a hold of you or connect with you and stay connected.
I think I'm most active on Twitter. So I would advise everybody just to go to Twitter and just say SUJIT, and Lalwani will pop up. So just hit a follow. And for the fact that every single listener or the viewer has already come this far in watching this podcast and interview, I would suggest the best or the least you could do is go on Twitter and tag us and shoot a comment, whether you liked it, you loved it, you enjoyed it, what did you take away, put it in stone, conserve this energy, put it into a tweet us, tag us, and I promise every single person who made it this far on the podcast, if you come and tag us, I will surely respond to each one of you and connect with you.
Yeah, which is amazing.
And that's the best way to reach.
Yeah.
Tweet is the best way to reach.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, when you have millions of people that are trying to connect with you and get your attention and stuff, and you give them, this is how you do it. Right.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So that's very exciting. So we'll make sure that we do that. I'm going to do that as well and send some Twitters out there and connect. I recommend everybody look up Sujit, and I'll have all your information and links and everything in our show notes as well for this program so that we can share it and get the word out there. Because I think that this conversation is so critical for because there's two main elements that we really talked about. One is self-reflection. Keep working on ourselves harder than anything else. And then two, understanding that the real secret to connecting with other people is to have an honest conversation and seek to understand and ask them, and so like one of the tools that I use a lot of times when I'm working with different people or different departments is we create a one-sheet user manual. Right. So it's just one sheet of this is how to best work with me. Right. This is best how to communicate with me, or what I like and what I don't like. If you do this, you're going to get a great response. If you do this, not so much. Right. It's just learning about each other. So, okay. So what do you think about culturally where we're headed? With the world is becoming more and more blended all the time, which is amazing because we're finally taking all of the talents. The internet has been able to finally get us to work together and collaborate in a way that was never possible really before. And so it's very exciting. So when you have Americans come over to where you are, or when we have you come over to America, are you seeing any things that that are making us stronger, or are you seeing things that are happening that are keeping people divided?
I think very important point that you brought up, Tim. First of all, I think we are constantly moving towards what would look impossible at this point in time to even visualize, understand. But we're moving towards virtual borderlessness. We're actually moving towards being one nation, one plane, one family as a global unit, working together on so many ideas. Because of internet, because how we've gotten connected, because of so many devices and tools. The very fact that you and I can do a Zoom meeting and then put up everything up on the internet for people to watch and figure out what they've learned from this is all a part of what this generation has been able to offer this far, and how everyone collaborated. The brains of several cultures and people have come together to actually bring this. But at the same time, I would never say this is all done and all achieved. It's an exercise that will last many, many decades to come. I definitely see a lot of potential for a lot of startups, ideas, coaches like yourself and myself, people who are trying to create media and influence. I think there's so much we all can do together slowly as we evolve one purpose, one planet, but I think that's going to take its own course of time. We'll all figure out what's right for us, but it is elevating the consciousness. It is bringing one common consciousness, and what will eventually prevail is what gets really strong across, so many nations and borders, and all the weaker things are going to fall out. So more than a divided world, I would say that it will be a more cleansed world, cleansed of all the lesser and weaker belief systems, and more empowered with those that gain influence. So one of the most important things that I believe, it's very important what we all talk about and influence, because that's really going to mark a lot of culture ahead, across borders and across nations. So if we all take a small bit of care to influence the right things, make the right conversations, involve in the right actions, do the right deeds, and right being a big word to debate upon, but I'm sure that moral basic virtues, if we get them right and make those influential conversations right collectively, I think we are going to achieve that much faster than it would have happened otherwise.
I love it.
But yes,
I love it. Yeah,
I do see a lot of. Yes. Go ahead.
I love your idea of, one purpose, one planet, right? So, I can't read one passion. I'm taking notes because I love what you're saying. I can't
Thank
read my
you.
own writing, but I'm taking notes. One
Thank
passion,
you.
one purpose, one planet, right? I love that idea. We cleanse people by cleansing the insecurity and the fear,
Absolutely.
self-doubt. The biggest fear people have is that I'm not good enough. I won't measure up, and then I won't be loved. And so
Absolutely.
if we can get people to feel secure and loved and have that acceptance for themselves, they will have that more for those around them. And then we won't have as much envy and greed and fear. I think it's always going to be a part of the human condition, unfortunately, because not everybody has the same agenda. Not everybody is altruistic and wanting to have a big group hug around the planet. Not everybody's like that.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
but we still got to stand up and bring the light. So that's amazing. And it makes sense because, online, it talks a lot about how you have taken the things that you've done and you're trying to make, not just trying, that you are making a positive social impact, right? That as a philanthropist, right? You're trying to improve the world and improve the planet through your books and through your websites and things like that. So let me ask you a question. If you, based on what you've learned so far, if you could go back and tell 10-year-old you, right, Sujit, you could give him some advice, right, that would prepare him for what's to come. What advice would you give him?
I think I would absolutely advise myself that, hey, listen, it's totally okay if you just put yourself into a set and a bunch of failures or a series of them, and do not stop moving towards what you want to succeed, because there were a lot of times failure scared the hell out of me. While it's important to fear something, while it's important to be nervous about failing at times so that you perform even better, but I think killing that little fear inside me, or rather I would say the big fear about failing, inside of me, before I actually embarked on a journey to do things that I'm doing, I would have been so much better. Secondly, I would say that the art of networking is the greatest one single art I need to master, from as early an age as I can, to ensure that I can create a global impact, and nothing else would matter as much as that would do. So these are the two things that I would do to advise myself.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. So, just to remind ourselves, there's no failure, just feedback, right? You're just learning feedback. And then the better you are at strengthening relationships and being others focused, right? So it's not just what am I going to get out of it, but what kind of value can I show up with? I always say, the more value you bring, the more valuable you become.
Oh my God, that's brilliant.
And so the idea, and of course I didn't start out thinking that. Because of my own insecurity, I was like, how am I going to be okay? What's in it for me? How am I going to survive? But the fact that, and it's funny because when you let go of the fear and you just finally do start being others focused, that's when you get all the things that you were hoping to get anyway.
Absolutely. And anywhere on the journey, you lose that focus again, and boom, you start losing things one by one.
That's exactly
and then you come back to the same point that you got to be others focused, and you got to help enough people rise up if you want to be rising up yourself. Absolutely.
Yeah, which is why it's so important then to take that step back, right? And to take care of yourself and find people in your life that will support you as well. Sometimes it's not your own family. A lot of times you have to find your own tribe, so to speak. You've got to find those people. And I always say you got to, if you're looking for gold, you're going to sift through a lot of mud until you find those golden nuggets. And that's
absolutely. Okay. and very well said. It might just not always be the blood or the relatives or the people you're currently surrounded with. As you evolve, the circle is going to change, and you have to be open for it.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny because these days I look for circles of people to hang out with where I'm the dumbest person in the room, right? I'm looking to really up my game with people, and maybe I'm not the dumbest in the room, but I might be the brokest in the room of some of these people that have just made so much money. But
wow.
I always want to grow and be stretched. I'm beyond, I don't feel good about me. No, I feel great about me. I want to be stretched. I want to learn. And the only way to do that is to get around other people who are big thinkers, right? Like you, and who are out there. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing when you think about your personal story of starting in 100 square foot room and then
I know.
going to a place where you are making a global impact. I mean, that's like, wow, right? Your brother might be sitting there going, what's going on? This doesn't make sense. Why are you?
I do agree. I mean, we were just not, in 100 square feet home, we were like, 12 of us. And during summer holidays, when our relatives would come in, we would be 22 people at home. But one thing I definitely learned early on was, you got to celebrate life and you got to enjoy life with everything it offers and up your game. If you might start off with any circumstance, but where you end is totally a call of your choices and nothing else.
That's beautiful. I love that. So I heard a quote one time. Oh, it's motivational speakers. We got a quote for everything. So
yes,
it said that everything always works out in the end. And if it hasn't worked out yet, it's
not the end. Absolutely.
That's right. So I always feel like both of us are just getting warmed up. So, and I'm probably twice your age, but I still feel like I'm just getting warmed up, And
absolutely.
It's very exciting. Sujit, this has been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you. And I definitely want to have you back on the show again so that we can talk more. I have a feeling that you and I are going to be talking a lot anyway, but when we can share it with everybody else, because this conversation has been really enjoyable. So again, Sujit Lalwani, I want you to make sure that you check out the show notes and go on Twitter and just Sujit, it's SUJIT, and then Lalwani is going to show up there. I was talking to Sujit and I was like, now how do I say your name? And I went all Southern. So I was like, Lalwani. Like, oh no. So, but definitely do a shout out when you hear this, and follow him and go to the website. What is the website address for Inspirational Unlimited?
It's eMag.com.
Okay, so IUEMag.com.
Okay. I have a hack for everyone. Just type Inspirational eMagazine, and we're lucky that the first link that'll pop up globally, no matter which country you are in, it's going to be IU. So we are today the #1 inspirational e-magazine, the way we added the tagline 7 years ago when we were just a box and we wouldn't be showing up as #1 search result. But today, I assure you, we will.
That's outstanding. So you said it in 2012 and boom, here we are. Outstanding. Yeah, so good. Well, thank you so much. Is there one last thought that you'd like to leave with everybody?
Yes, I would, though I would love that it's not the last one and we do more of these together at some point in time again. But for this show, I would love to say it's time that we stop being human beings and we become human doings. And that's my favorite quote as a speaker. So I would love that everybody moves out to action. There's so much that you have thought. There's so much that you have envisioned. There's so much that you ideate. There's so much you feel for, but you stop yourself from taking action. But I think it's time that you just go out and put your first step, and take my word, the next will follow, and the next will follow. You will figure a way out that you would be confused how on earth did this pattern unfold from being a motivational speaker. Oh no, from being a non-reader. Oh no, from being somebody who came from 100 square feet home. If this is what I could do, I think everybody can do 10 times more. And I'm sure there's so much more to be done because these many nations are waiting for your impact. That's my last message, Dan.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is just outstanding. Sujit Lalwani, thank you so much for being here. I mean, this was just outstanding. And for everybody that's listening, I recommend that you go back and listen again, because there was so much wisdom and knowledge that Sujit just shared with us. And so go back, listen to it again, share it with your friends, share it with your colleagues, share it with the leaders in your organization, because there's so many powerful messages in here. So thanks so much for listening. Make sure you go and check out all of the links and connect with Sujit on social media, and tune in for the next time. Make today a sure success. Stay mesmerizing, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Hey, would you like more free tips on how to be a mesmerizing leader? Then check out mesmerizingleadership.com, and also hang out with me on Facebook, facebook.com/Tim Shurr. Thanks so much, and make your